KJ, good afternoon. You ready? Guys, this is for KJ. It's a person that I follow, and KJ follows myself. We found each other there a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I've been following her story and everything that's gone on with her, trying to give a little bit of help and understanding and bring a little bit of understanding for her as to what's gone on. But she's pretty switched on, I can tell you. But let's break down her video diary entry for her. And KJ's given me full permission to do this. Because I really wanted to try and explain what was going on at that point, because it's so confusing for victims to come out of this and try and understand psychologically their own issues and dilemmas that they face and conflicts that they face, and then also that of their ex partner who was narcissistic or pathological in nature. So let's break it down. There's a couple of things I just want to cover in it, first of all, just so you get a bit of an understanding of what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to go through a couple of things. So I'm going to go through you first, and what I'm not going to go through your story first. I'm going to go through him first, actually, but I'm going to go through your thing that I'm going to be talking about with you. So I'm going to be talking about your internal landscape, about you. I'm going to be talking about your libidinal pulls and pushes. And our libidinal pulls and pushes are to do with an internal feeling that we get inside of us in regards to any sort of exciting or rejecting object in our lives, which would be the narcissist in this case. And those libidinal pulls and pushes are to do with desire for connection, a need for attachment, a want for connection, love basically. And they're there because we have access to both positive and negative emotions, and that's a blessing for us. But it's the curse of the narcissist because they've only got negative access. Anyway, the other thing I'm going to be talking about yourself is internalizations and interjects and projections from him. Okay, that sort of covers you. You're a lot easier. The narcissist, though, I'm going to be talking about supply and what that actually is. I'm going to be talking about the pathological narcissistic space, which is going to make sense to you about the people around him. Okay, everybody that made him sort of plausible for you. And then we're going to talk about the personality disorder, and I'm going to run through what his actions were and how you were feeling about things. So, first and foremost, um, he knew that you were going to be nervous. He knows you're going to be nervous. He knows that you're going to be going to court, and it's a dominating place. So it's full of anxiety. He knows you're sort of um, reliving your trauma in front of people and getting judged for doing so, because that's where we are. We're in court. Um, so I'm just going to cover his video that he did at the end a couple of days before the baffled you. Well, that was about image, and it was also about control, asserting some control over you because he knew we were going to see it. He knew you still subscribed. Don't be thinking he didn't. He 100% did. I can guarantee he was looking at your YouTube account on a daily basis, numerous times, as he was doing all your social media where he could. And he would have found a way if you thought he couldn't. Um, so that was giving him supply. So any distress, any notable distress from you would have been an indicator that you had seen it, and somehow it would bring him a little bit of supply, a little bit of grandiosity. And it's about reinstating that internal sense of control over you. That's all it's about. Um, we'll cover that a little bit more as we'll go through these things. So, so let's go through his traits and the things that he does. The projection of the traits, his accusations of you being narcissistic, causing drama, repeatedly, most likely repeatedly using tone and victim language to entrain you, sort of engulf you with his personality. So sort of like overly project himself onto you. So basically, they inhabit you, they colonize you, they control you from within. So this is all about entrainment. This is brainwashing, by the way. All these things are done on a repetitive basis to brainwash you, and then to make you start behaving more narcissistically or more psychopathically or more reactively, and then that way they can chastise their own behaviors. Believe it or not, this is the shit they do. You know. They want to chastise it because then it's about fake modesty. It's about fake humility. It's sort of in their mind they are the person who would never do these things, and yet they're doing these things. And to justify that, then they force that out, project it out upon their victims, and hope the victims sort of accept that, and that becomes part of them, and that becomes a persecutory part of you that becomes internalized. You become the abuse, and in turn, in their minds, you become the abuser. And they sort of hammer that home with victim language. So this is all about his inabilities to accept himself, his bad internal object, which is his, which was his emotionally dead mother. Okay, somebody who couldn't um, bring him joy in his life to make him feel like an idealized object for a prolonged enough period to, instill that good object inside of him that gave him an emotionally safe sense of mum. Right, that didn't happen. So she broke his will. Um, so we have to understand this fictional sense of mother is actually controlled by the external mother that broke them, because all the behaviors and all the traits and all those things have come from the external mother, and the internalization of that abuse and that behavior and those bad traits and all those things that have happened to him, um, they come back up out of him again via the false self. But it's the mother, it's the internal fictional sense of mother that's dishing it out, but it's really the external dead, emotionally dead mother that's actually handing out all this here abuse. He's obviously not aware of that. That's an unconscious thing. And the false self rejects any of this. It rejects any wrongdoing. It fears exposure. So it forces them to sort of project their internal landscape onto others. And it's really in the hope that you, and with the intention of you accepting this as being you. So that brings me on to the next thing, and that's about supply. Understanding where we stand in the role of supply brings a lot of sense to our job in terms of the shared fantasy and our role in it. And I'll cover the shared fantasy in a little second. I might take another video to do it, but if it does, who cares? Um, we are what they call secondary supply. We are the regulators of their emotional turmoil. We are like the punch bag for it, so to speak. We are there to be sort of punished and have that extolled upon us. And primary supply is something you probably hear a little bit about, or people might say, "Oh, you were grade A supply," blah blah blah. Let's bring that into a little bit of context. The pathological narcissistic space. The pathological narcissistic space is contained full of people who are in their own shared fantasy with the narcissist. They have no idea they're there, but they're in their own shared fantasy, and it's because they support that image of grandeur. They keep the internal feeling of the narcissist alive, that he is actually who he thinks he is, who he says he is, who he confabulates himself to be, who he lies from within about who he is, and makes up this story that covers up this internal darkness, a void of nothing that's going on inside. And the pathological narcissistic space is filled full of people who keep that picture alive. And all of them are there for plausible deniability. There are different groups of people. There'll be people that look up to him and wish they were like him. So that's sort of like pure narcissistic supply. That's primary narcissistic supply. Then you're going to have other people in there who sort of know what he's like a little bit, but he has somehow won them back round again and so on, and think he's a great guy. And then he'll have other people in there who he admires, he looks up to, who he knows he's actually beneath, but he sees himself on the same level. And that's bringing him some sort of internal sense of self. So to conclude, what we have is a human being who's stuck in a repetitive cycle of repeating his family childhood dynamics versus other object relations failures that he knows is going to fail and is doomed to fail. He sounds like a very sadistic character, a very very sadistic character, um, and he is hell bent on not stopping. I'm going to do a separate video for you because this one's only about 10 minutes. Um, so I look forward to giving you another one. I hope that clears things up for you and helps guide you. It's been my honour to help.